Good morning, Mets fans, and happy Monday. Welcome to a brand new week on Driving with Mr. Met. I am Mr. Met, and weekend is come and gone. Not a whole lot of news to report in and around baseball, other than a big acquisition for the Mets, and I'm going to talk about that, and a couple of other little things this morning. It was hard for me to contain my excitement over the weekend. I almost threw up an emergency Mr. Met video on Saturday when I read the news that finally the Mets have gone out and acquired Jose Lobaton on a minor league deal. Yes, that's correct. Backup catcher Jose Lobaton, whose last season hit 2 home runs, both against the Mets. Makes perfect sense for the mid-market Mets to go out and acquire a guy like Jose Lobaton. Mets blog wrote a really good piece over the weekend. I think it was either Friday night or Saturday morning. Maybe it was even earlier than that. But it was titled, "What is the Mets game plan?" You know, it's sort of like delving into what the hell is going on with this team. What direction are they going in? Are they going for it, as was previously reported? Or should we read into the fact that they're doing nothing as far as player acquisitions, and they're not going for it? The piece on Mets blog is complemented really well by a story that Marc Carig wrote for Newsday again over the weekend. And Carig was pretty pointed in his story. It was an opinion piece, but it was really well done. And basically he's saying, and I think we all agree, it's time for the Wilpons to explain themselves to Mets fans. Because, look, right now, we don't know what the hell is going on in Metsville. You know, we don't know how much money there is to spend or not to spend. We don't know if the team is broke. We don't know, we don't know anything because there's so many mixed signals, to the point where I'm not even certain that Sandy Alderson knows what money he has to spend. You know, it's time, and I think this was Carig's point, for Mets ownership to be a little bit more transparent and stop hiding and stop being, the sneaking person around the corner that no one sees but everyone knows is there. The Wilpons have owned the team for a long time. They do love the team. I do believe that. But I think sometimes when you love something, it's important sometimes to let it go. And this is a great example of how the Wilpons, if the Wilpons really love this team and they really want this team to win, they need to step aside and sell the team to owners who are willing to commit to making that happen. I've never been on this bandwagon before. It's the first time I've ever really legitimately been on the sell the team bandwagon. And in the past, I've always been like, dude, this is their team. They own it. They can do what they want. But the more I think about it, the more I start to sort of understand that they owe us something as the fans that support them through thick and thin. They owe us more than what they've given us. And as I've complained about last week, this is not Kansas City, and I'm not disrespecting Kansas City. This is not a mid-market team. This is not the Minnesota Twins. Okay, this is the New York Mets, the second wealthiest franchise in baseball. All right, or at least in the top 5. I don't know where the Dodgers rank these days. They spend money like they've got a money printing factory out there in LA, but the Mets are not in that middle or bottom of the pack, and they behave like it. And as I said last week, it's just nauseating. Speaking of nauseating, I wanted to comment on something that has me thinking. I listened to the Meet the Mets cast last week from the winter meetings when they were doing their nightly special reports, and Matt and Rob and Steve were talking about Mets prospects and Dom Smith, and I wanted to sort of feed on something that they were talking about last week, and I think it's important. They were talking about Dom Smith as a first baseman and how Sandy's sort of sending mixed messages. He's the first baseman, we're confident in him, and just the week before that it was like, no, Dom's not in good shape, we don't believe in him, that sort of deal. The bottom line is the Mets need to do a better job as an organization to not publicly comment on things like that. Because if we're confused as fans, imagine the message it sends to other organizations. All right, and imagine the message that it sends to other players who are considering coming to the Mets. If I'm a player, am I going to want to go to an organization that airs dirty laundry out in the public, in the media, through comments like this? Or would I rather go to an organization that's going to protect me and not say anything about me, even if I'm not doing well? Dom Smith, the Dom Smith conundrum is a conundrum because, if you've soured on a guy, or you have a guy in your organization and you've soured on him, you don't want him anymore, what's the best thing to do? Just cut bait and let him walk away? Or is it better to have an air of mystery around this person so that you have some opportunity to sell him to another organization who might not know that he's not in great shape or that he doesn't hit the curveball? Keep these things closer to the vest a little bit so that you can develop this interest in players that you just don't know a lot about. The Mets have done this in the past. They were able to trade Dilson Herrera for Jay Bruce. Where's Dilson Herrera today? They have done these sorts of things in the past, but as often as they've done that the right way, they've also done things like they're doing right now with Dom the wrong way. So I'd love to see the Mets step away from this public commentary that they seem to be so in love with, where they're using it as a motivating tool for their players. Step away from that. Treat these guys like adults. If you want to talk to Dom Smith about his weight or about his conditioning or about whatever, why don't you sit down with Dom Smith and talk to him about it? And don't say anything to the media. No one needs to know. Going back to the movie Moneyball, one of my favorite movies, one of the lines is, you need to stop caring about what people think. And it's so right. Who cares what questions you're being asked? No comment. Can't comment on that now. I'm not going to comment on that. We're dealing with that internally. What's wrong with that as an answer? Sandy was really good at that, and he's always been kind of good at that. But he's also been at the same time a little bit too open when it comes to discussing some of his feelings about his players. So anyway, that's going to wrap it up for today. Hopefully we have some more news to report during this week, and if there's news that breaks, I will comment on it with a new video. If there's no news, I'll probably come back in the middle of the week, maybe Wednesday or Thursday perhaps, with a little pre-Christmas show, and then that'll probably wrap it up for the pre-Christmas editions of Driving with Mr. Met, and I'll come back the week after Christmas. So until the next time I record, thanks for watching. I appreciate it as always. If you are not following me on Twitter, do so at Mr_Met. And as always, let's go Mets.